Philosophy, a word that today brings to mind grand ideas, deep questions, and quiet reflection. But once, long ago, philosophy was not a subject in a classroom. It was a new way of seeing the world, a quiet revolution of the mind. Our story begins in the 6th century BCE, in a world filled with myths, gods, and supernatural explanations. Most people believe that thunder was the anger of Zeus, that the seasons were controlled by divine forces, and that truth came from the stories passed down through generations. But in a small corner of the Mediterranean, something changed. It started in Ionia, a coastal region of ancient Greece, now part of modern-day Turkey. There, in the city of Miletus, a man named Thales began to ask a radical question. What is the world really made of? He proposed that water, not gods, was the fundamental substance of all things. It was simple, even wrong by modern standards, but it was a start. He was trying to explain the world through natural causes, not mythology. Following Thales, thinkers like Anaximander and Anaximenes joined the quest. They speculated about the boundless, the air, and the apeiron, infinite substances that shaped all of existence. Their work laid the foundations for science, yet they did not see themselves as scientists. They were seekers of wisdom, philosophers. From Ionia, philosophy traveled west, across the Aegean, to the Greek mainland, to Athens, where it would flourish like never before. Enter Pythagoras, a mysterious figure who believed that numbers were the essence of reality. To him, the universe had a hidden harmony, a cosmic order that could be discovered through mathematics. His followers lived in a kind of philosophical commune, devoted to purity, study, and the search for truth. Though best known today for a theorem in geometry, Pythagoras also explored the soul, reincarnation, and the nature of being. And then came a man who changed everything. Socrates. Socrates wrote nothing, yet his impact is immeasurable. He walked barefoot through the streets of Athens, questioning everyone, artisans, generals, poets, not to show off, but to awaken thought. He believed that wisdom began with recognizing one's own ignorance. His method was simple. Ask questions, not to get answers, but to make people think more deeply. He was not always popular. In fact, his relentless questioning irritated many. Eventually, he was put on trial for corrupting the youth and impiety. He could have fled, but he chose to stay and drink hemlock, dying for his beliefs. To Socrates, the examined life was the only life worth living. His student, Plato, recorded his teacher's dialogues and built upon them. He founded the Academy, one of the first institutions of higher learning in the Western world. In his famous allegory of the cave, Plato describes prisoners mistaking shadows for reality, a metaphor that still resonates. For Plato, the physical world was just a reflection of a higher, perfect reality, the world of forms, truth, beauty, justice. These were eternal and unchanging, beyond the reach of our senses. Plato's student, Aristotle, took a different path. Where Plato reached for the abstract, Aristotle observed the concrete. He studied animals, politics, ethics, and logic. He believed that knowledge came from experience, that we learn through observation and reason. Aristotle's writings shaped medieval thought and still influence science and philosophy today. To Aristotle, happiness was not pleasure or wealth, but eudaimonia, a flourishing life, achieved through virtue and reason. He believed that we are social beings, meant to live in communities, governed by laws and ethics. As philosophy matured, other schools emerged. The Stoics, founded by Zeno of Citium, taught that true peace came from accepting what we cannot control. They believed in living according to nature, guided by reason. And emotions, they said, clouded judgment. To be wise was to be indifferent to fortune or suffering, to remain calm in the face of life's storms. The Epicureans, on the other hand, believed that pleasure was the highest good, but not in excess. They sought a simple, moderate life, free from fear and pain. For Epicurus, the gods were distant, and death was nothing to fear. When we are, he said, death is not. And when death is, we are not. And then came the skeptics, who questioned whether anything could truly be known at all. They advised suspending judgment, not to despair, but to find tranquility in uncertainty. Throughout these centuries, philosophy was not limited to ivory towers. It was lived, taught in public squares, debated in marketplaces, practiced in the way one lived, as a guide for life, a personal compass, a way to navigate the complexities of existence. What began in Greece would later be absorbed and expanded by the Romans, preserved by Islamic scholars, and reborn during the Renaissance. The questions asked by Thales, Socrates, and Aristotle would echo through time. In Descartes' Meditations, Kant's Ethics, Nietzsche's Provocations, and even in the questions we still ask today. What is real? What is good? How should I live? These are not just ancient questions. They are human ones. Timeless, unfinished. And that, perhaps, is the greatest gift of philosophy. Not answers, but the courage to keep asking.